Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard, along with your host, Bill Stierle. And, Bill, I know we're going to pick up where we left off last time and talk about, the virus communication and purchasing truth.
Yes.
and maybe get to some tips to reduce emotional reaction that we mentioned briefly last time. But, I'd like to start because it's so, at least fresh in my mind, with what's happening in these daily coronavirus briefings at the White House, which now they've moved to the Rose Garden, so can everybody outside move the chairs farther apart for all of the for the journalists. But this is happening daily, even over the weekend now. And I'll tell you, I'm really been disappointed with how some of the journalists have been handling their questioning that is not very skillful. And it is, they're trying to fact check the president live in a briefing, and it's backfiring on them, I really believe. And the thing that's really disappointing is I'm not even sure the journalists realize or care that it's backfiring on them.
Well, they do care, but they do care because they're. I think they're It feels frustrating. It's not a healthy dialogue. It's not a dialogue that is in service to the public. It's the pursuit of truth or information from the president needs to be done a different way. And that's the thing to really kind of land on, Tom.
Well, let me set this up because I am really curious what you would do differently from some of these reporters, or how you would, coach these journalists to ask a question in a different way, because it's so tragic, I think, how this is happening. So, for example, the other day, and I'm honestly, I got to look up, his first name. It was Acosta, is it?
Yes.
I forget his first name, but the CNN reporter asks, the president, he starts by reading out the president's past remarks. Like, Mr. President, I'd like to get you to to speak to some of the statements you've made in the past, we have it under control. And he's citing dates like March 4th. We have it under control.
Yes.
It's going to go away like a miracle. Later on, we have this under control. And he repeats like 4 or 5 statements. As he's doing it, you can see the president's demeanor, shaking his head and, getting frustrated, blood boiling probably behind the podium, and he's getting ready to pounce. But what he's trying to get him to say is, what do you say? He starts the question, I think, what do you say to the American people who heard you make these statements in the past, and now we are in a very different situation, very dire situation, whatever. And the president takes the opportunity then to attack the reporter, saying, well, why would you ask such a nasty question? And using that word nasty.
Similar pushbacks and similar fake news and similar phrases, catchphrases per se, and so. Well, Tom, the hard part about this is, as if I imagine myself coaching these reporters and letting them really know how to communicate better with this president. But it's not just this president, it's generally to the American public, is you actually need to start off by taking the things they say and putting them in the frame that the president meant them, which is, I want to empathize with the motive that the president said the thing, even though it doesn't maybe meet the need for truth, even though it might be exaggerated. I want to place the phrase that they said in the motive that he said it. That's the step. That's the mental step that they've got to take a hold of. Think of it like a picture frame, Tom. Okay, the frame holds, augments, and even draws out different elements of the picture.
Okay.
So it'll be like a miracle. It'll go away. There's 5, and it'll only go down to 2, go down to 0 very soon. And the president gets to stand there and says, yes, it's true. For those 5 people, it went down to 0. It went away for those 5 people. One of them died. Of course, that's a part of the going away part of it. But I'm not focusing on that. I'm focusing on the truth that eventually it will go away. I'm not going to talk about when that going away is going to take place. I'm just going to promote optimism and reality the way I would like everyone to see it. You could do that with a truth. You can set the intention. A company can set a vision even though they're not there. The company could say, we're going to grow to $100,000, $1 million by the end of the year. And the CFO goes, we're not even close to $1 million right now. That's not true. How the heck are you going to get there? The job of that CEO or the job of the marketing person is to look into the future and tell everybody where we're going, not to tell everybody where we are. So you see the frame that the person's doing it in, state that frame, and then empathize with that frame. So give me an example of that, something the president say, and then I'm going to do it in the real time so that you can feel what, and the listener can really hear what really the best strategy is to talk to somebody that speaks like this.
Okay, well, so let's take another one. Happened, I think, on Sunday. Yamiche Alcindor from PBS News asked the president about his past statements about some of the governors around the country, that he wouldn't call them, the governor of Washington, the governor of Michigan, that they haven't been appreciative of what the administration is doing. And he told Mike Pence, I wouldn't even call them. So she framed a question about that, trying to get the president to admit that what he said was, if governors don't show him respect, then they're not going to get what they need for their state. That's what she's implying, and what the president really on its face was saying, but she's trying to put that fact back in his face. So I don't know.
So all of a sudden you're sitting with this thing, this situation. He tells Mike Pence this. He feels justified to say, if somebody says something negative about the United States, that I'm not going to take it on this watch, because we are the country of Make America Great Again. That's the frame.
Right.
So, Mr. President, It sounds like with your comments to President Pence. See, I'm being Michelle right now.
Yeah,
Is that her name?
Yamiche Shalcender. You're
Yamiche,
being Yamiche. Yeah,
Yamiche.
You're saying
Mm-hmm.
so. You're talking as if to her, to the president.
I'll pretend I'm her. You're the president, and all of a sudden I'm saying, Mr. President, when you said this to them, I'm guessing. So you put curious on your side.
Okay.
I'm guessing you would like the governors to be optimistic and really positive about the situation that they're in and really work to promote to the people a sense of optimism that they're doing the best they can, as well as the federal government is doing a great job. And you'd really like them to promote a positive image in order to reduce the tension and reduce the ability for them to get for the people to get worried and scared. You don't want them to panic. Isn't that correct, Mr. President? Yes, that is.
Oh yeah, he would jump on that and say, absolutely right.
Correct. Now all of a sudden he has taken his first step towards reality. Even though he's admitting to something, it's like, oh, he doesn't see this job as being truthful. He sees this job as being promotive. He doesn't see this job as a job where he has to be honest about safety and protection. He sees this job as a way to promote America as number one, even though we're doing the worst job, not the worst job, but we're doing a very terrible job compared to certain other nations. We're not going to compare ourselves to other nations because we are already number one because we say we are. Does that make sense? Is the frame, the motive has got to be framed the way that needs to. And he says yes to the picture that you've just painted for him because it's his picture. It's the one he's standing at. Then you can work your way to the second question.
Well, so that does make sense to me, Bill, framing it and getting him to say yes, because otherwise he shuts himself off. He
becomes defensive.
Right.
Then he uses the four. He uses all four. I think we might have done this in another episode. Our four, the four horsemen of an apocalypse. He uses all four of them. The first thing he does is defensiveness. The second thing he does is criticism. The third thing he does is contempt. And the fourth thing he does is withdraw. Now, he might go to withdraw early.
Oh, but no, I've seen him, and he did exactly that.
All of those,
he did defense. When Yamiche Shalcender, or I think it's Bob Acosta, is that right? Or is it Bob Costas is the NBC guy? Anyway, Acosta from CNN, when they ask this question, these kind of questions, the president immediately says, no, I didn't say that. At least with Yamiche Shalcender, I know he said it. No, what she said, quoting him back to himself, he says, no, I didn't say that. And even though he did, and we all know he did, and you could play the tape, but then he starts to spin it and say, no, what I said was this, and what he's really saying is what I meant was this. You're spinning it the wrong way on me. But then he starts attacking the journalist, saying, that's a really nasty question. You're a nasty journalist.
Criticism.
Criticism.
Name calling. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Then contempt. Then contempt. You've got fired. You were used to work to another place, and now you're working over here. Why is that? It's like, because I got a better job. It's like she can't get her. She can't get her truth in. Right. Because all of a sudden she's got to be defensive on the truth of and not take the bait of. And they don't know. It's disheartening because they don't know that they are walking into the trap. And because his languaging skills and his mindset is where it is, and because he's really playing the same record over and over again. And it's been a winning formula for him for years. Ronald Reagan had a winning formula. He had the same speech for 25 years, for 15 years, 25 years when he was the governor, same speech as he did when he was a president. Same speech. You do it. It's like consistency. You know, to be on the other side of it, Bernie Sanders, the same speech for 30, 40 years. Same.
Yeah.
So they stay in those places because their followers, the people that are the herd behind them, get activated by that speech because they have heard it so much they're in agreement with it. And they've heard it so much that they believe it. The only thing is you can sell truth and you can sell lies with the same strategy. You can sell a belief with the same strategy. The book is the same. The playbook is the same. The propaganda book, the Edward Bernays book, is the same book. Whether it's Goebbels in Germany or FDR in Washington, D.C. that's using the same book, they're using the same book. What do we do with all these Americans coming home? We need to set them on the path to have the America we would like. Well, all there was images of Americans, a family of 4 standing in front of a 3-bedroom house, a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. That's the image that they sold to GIs coming back. This is where you're going next. It's just different. Was that a bad thing? No, it just what it did was set America moving in that direction. You know, so
okay, well, so I understand the frame and you know, empathizing with the president and getting him
excellent
to be in agreement with you about the
That's
first
correct.
thing you say, so he doesn't, you know, go through the 4 stages of, you know, the
Horsemen.
what was 4
4
horsemen
horsemen of the apocalypse.
right? So what is the second question that then starts to reveal truth in a way the president will actually participate in the
So
process?
Mr. President, this is not about helping. This is not about helping or preventing the governors from doing work, because you're having Mike Pence call them and talk to them and provide them support. But it's just that because you don't really like the way they communicate, you don't want to talk to them, and that's something that you don't want to do, and you would rather somebody else to do it for you. Is that correct? Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Now, what I just did was saying, well, the president doesn't like some people and he likes other people. Well, great. It's a problem if it's Nancy Pelosi, because she's supposed to be on your team. And you've got to figure out how to recruit her on your team, which he could, but he didn't know how to do that.
Well, but also, aren't there, you know, I mean, he's attacking a couple, the president is trying to, how do I say, minimize the importance of certain states that have governors that are not on the president's team. And, you know, couldn't Yamiche come back to him and say, but Mr. President, what about all of your supporters who live in those states? What about
never use the phrase "what about"?
Okay.
That's a great, boy, you walked right into the reporter's hell.
Well, and I have no experience as a journalist, to be fair.
Of course, right.
Yeah,
you walk right into what reporter's hell right there. Well, what about this? But see, they'll use what about on the other side too. I mean, it's not like, you know, they use whataboutism all the time. So the way to avoid whatism is really take a look at phrases that are not familiar, or words that are not familiar, which are essential to a democracy: cooperation, collaboration. But you can't get those two words until you get somewhere between 3 to 5 yeses out of his mouth and make him look good.
Wow.
Now that's the hard part about it is that so what cooperation and collaboration might look like, I'm guessing, Mr. President, is to find out where the most cases are and send them the ventilators. Is that what your guys are thinking? Oh, yes. Now, I just asked a testing question, but he doesn't know it.
Okay.
The testing question is find out where the disease is and get them the ventilators. Is that correct? Oh, yes. Because it allows him to be optimistic. It allows him to be, it is handing him something that he can promote and he can work. The funny part about it is the only group of people that are handing him self-enriching sentences is Fox News. They're handing him self-enriching sentences that are not fully helping the nation. Because they just give him sentences that he can say yes to. He'll say yes to one from the Democrats. He'll say yes to it if it makes him look good, if it helps his need for respect, if it helps his need for acknowledgement, if it helps his need for, loyalty.
Well, so if you're a journalist and you've been educated to seek the truth, maybe in a very direct way, not in a maybe such a skillful way as what you're describing, that you have to go with the president with empathy and compassion to frame this for him, get him to say yes multiple times. How do you coach that kind of journalist to pivot or get to the truth after getting these multiple yeses?
Well, if I were coaching them and if I had a group of them in front of them, here's what I would do. I would take 5 of the best reporters that I know that are going to be in there. I take the 5 and say, okay, what questions you guys want to ask and what angle are you guys going after? And I would set them all up to ask questions to be empathetic, his feeling, his need, getting him to say yes with those frameworks. So you like acknowledgement that you're doing a wonderful job. Outstanding job, the best ever. Yeah, I like the acknowledgement that you're getting a level 10. And it looks like the state of Florida has been receiving that level of support. Yes, the governor there calls me every day and he says this, this, and this. What Trump doesn't know is he just disclosed a thing called favoritism.
Right.
So it sounds like the governor being persistent. The next reporter says, well, it sounds like the governor being persistent and really providing you some of the things that you would like, that you're able to provide him some of the things that he would like. Oh, yes. All I just want is for people to be appreciative. He just admitted to another quid pro quo.
Right.
But he didn't do the United States of America. He did the appreciative governors of wherever. Because the money in politics has divided us so much. This is my little editorial in the middle of this thing. because the money has provided the larger things. There's not enough people closer to the center in the voting bodies because they're here. Because it's like that, Trump has got to really solidify the one side. So Say this one to me and watch what happens. I'll be a reporter. Say the what I would like is the churches to be open. I would like the churches. Give me that one, because that one's will help everybody.
Sure thing. Sure. What I would really like is for everyone to be gathered together and the church is full by Easter Sunday.
So, Mr. President, I'm guessing you're really feeling optimistic, and you're really setting the intention for Americans to get back to worshiping the churches, because you're a man of faith, and you'd like us as a nation to return to the ways things used to be. Is that correct?
Yes.
See, you've got your yes, and now your follow-up is, but I'm guessing a part of you might be feeling torn, because you know that the disease is growing and we might not get there. Is that correct? Oh yeah, we might not get there.
You gave him an off-ramp.
I gave him an off-ramp. Makes him look good. See, Fox does this to Fox doesn't do it all the time. Sometimes they keep egging him on, and then all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
all nuts and bolts come out of his head. Tom, I know this is gonna maybe bug some viewers, especially on the conservative side of the fence, but it's when you think about your kids when they were 4 or 5 or 6, that specific age, sometimes 3-year-olds, but more 4, 5, and 6, because that's when they're formulating language patterns that are called winning formulas. This is my winning sentence. This is a sentence that is going to get me somewhere. Now, the household, the parents could be modeling these sentences. Be optimistic. Don't talk about the downside. Just keep talking about the vision and the upside. This is where I would like this vision to go. I'm guessing that his dad or his mom or both modeled that kind of, don't talk about the downside. Just keep talking about how great it is, and how great it is that people are listening to you. And other people will give you what you want. Just keep talking on the positive side of things. Yeah, this is going to be a great building. Yeah, I'm going to do this with this. This is the next thing. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be stupendous. We're going to have the best sinks. We're going to have the best, whatever they say, just repeat it back to them. We're going to have the best of that. Yep, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. Now, in marketing, that's part of that is necessary, because the person you're trying to build enrollment, he's really the promoter in chief. He's not the commander in chief. Because commander means you have to make decisions. Promoter just means you need to pronounce a vision. All he does is pronounce a vision. And then when he pronounces the vision, he walks it back. Then he pronounces a vision, he walks it back. It's the promoter in chief. He's not the commander in chief. Commander in chief says, here's where the honesty thing, and here's the best course of this.
Well, the commander right now that's most evident in the media is Andrew Cuomo,
That's right.
Governor of New York, who is giving more scary honesty.
That's right.
And, telling people like it is, which is a lot of people find refreshing and to be an example of true leadership.
Right. His ability during a scary, when your kids are falling asleep at night, and you got two different kinds of parents that can come into the bed. One is going to be saying, gosh, there's no monster under the bed. There's really no monster under the bed. And then the other parent says, is it okay if I check for you? to see if there's a monster under the bed? Yeah, no, don't. Yeah, no, don't. You know. Okay, well, let me see. I see you feel scared and you really want me to be here with you. Isn't that right? Yeah. And then the kid might say, yeah, I don't want to go to bed right now. I want to connect with you a little more. Okay. There's not about the monster under the bed. It's about connecting with me.
Or maybe it was the fear of monster under the bed, but instead of you saying there is no monster under the bed and arguing the facts, you ask the question, would you like me to look and see if there's a monster under the bed?
Yeah, do you need some support with that? So the reporters, they're treating this like it's a professional tennis match trying to call really hit hard shots in their direction, and he can't hit those balls back. So all he does is basically stand at the net, either holds the net up so the ball never goes over. That's a nasty question.
Right.
The ball never goes over. The net doesn't count.
Well, and the journalists are giving the president opportunities to deny what he said before. I mean, it's undeniable that he said the things he said before. We've got the recordings of it, and
there's a difference
give you the
between
transcripts, but
there's the difference. See, the president doesn't know the difference between when you say something, that there's multiple meanings for the things you say. He's expecting, the way a 4 to 6-year-old is expecting that the parent or the nation understand the meaning that he means, not the various meanings that are behind the sentence. The 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old doesn't have a range of awareness to know that when you say this, that is not not a truthful sentence in this moment. Now you mix a 4 to 6-year-old with a wealthy real estate agent, builder, you mix that with that's a promoter of buildings. Well, then you're just going to get somebody that has a very narrow types of communication. And I don't, well, he's never going to say, here's the errors of my ways. He's never, ever, even when he gets out, he'll say, this is the best presidency ever, even though there'll be wreckage everywhere. He did it every single time one of his businesses failed. Every single time within a couple of months of the casinos coming out, he wound up being okay, leaving, and the city of Atlantic City is holding the bag, on a stuff.
Sure, and
well
all
investors.
these journalists, Acosta and Michel Cinder and others like them. Well, a lot of them, anybody who's not Fox News really, who tries to fact check the president and get him to comment on it, they're never going to win doing that. They're not going to accomplish the bigger goal. What's really sad is I see them, often later after the press briefing is done, they're live on their network and saying, well, so the president really didn't answer the question, and and they feel somehow justified. They tried to call the president out on his not on the facts, and that he said this the other time, and now he's trying to say he didn't say it, and they somehow feel, yes, we've done our job, when in reality we all know that he said those things in the past. It doesn't matter. They feel like they're doing their job, and they walk away feeling like, all right, I did my job. I called him out. I didn't let him get away with just us thinking that all of us believe what he's selling. But then the president uses it to continue to rally his supporters and say, the fake news media is just being nasty, and and it just further divides us. And these journalists need some skill.
They really do. They really do need some skill. They would be successful if they started with a core set of words. And this is something we talked about last episode. It's the core set of words. If they said, um, um, uh, um, Mr. President, the need for safety is very important for the people of various different states. How are we looking to get some safety in those environments? Now, you're keeping them close to the word safety, which is really what the public needs to hear about. It gives him a little bit of a platform and to see where he's going to spin. Then you can follow it up with, so, Mr. President, it sounds like protection would look like this. Is that what protection would look like? Yes. So, Mr. President, I'd like to get some clarity about of something. I'm sure you're well aware that the standard of medical practices is that a nurse needs to change her outfit from with an infectious disease like this. They need to change the outfit from going from their protective gear, going from one patient to the next. So throughout the day, they might have to change and throw out, because of the standard of care to protect the patients. They might need to throw out the mask from one room to go into the next room in order not to carry the disease to another patient. So I'm guessing you're aware about the volume of masks that are needed inside the hospital. Oh, yes, we're getting the volume that they need. Now he won't say the stupid thing like, why do you need 30,000 ventilators?
And where are the masks
masks going?
Yeah.
You've got to help the person gain perspective, because he doesn't have public health experience and perspective. See, if I was asking him in his profession, watch this, Mr. President, in building this new hotel, and there's 200 rooms, would you be willing to tell me what the possible number of toilets are going to be in these 200 rooms? He'll say, well, there's 200 toilets in there. Why? Because he's built hotel rooms. He knows that, this. So, Mr. President, I guess if you put a more expensive toilet in there and a less expensive toilet, there's a range of revenue that you're going to make. Oh, yes. If I put it, because I like doing the best, and I would do the toilets at this price because that's the type of facility that we're making here. He's in his wheelhouse then. Right now, he's not. And because of his life circumstance and because of the wealth that he inherited, he's never had to work through a conflict or to stretch his thinking beyond the narrowness of his profession, which had to do with this real estate thing, and then had to do with this reality show thing. The reality show thing is still the promoter, marketer person. And that's why he talks about ratings.
Well, and I think the president has latched onto the fact that these daily coronavirus press briefings are getting a lot of people watching. They're getting a lot of ratings. He's in his this is his reality TV show right now. But do you think that the reporters who are in the mainstream media, even though they should want to pursue truth, if they pursued truth the way you're suggesting, showing empathy and compassion to the president, and then getting him to actually participate and answer some questions?
I don't want him to answer any questions, Tom. I want the reporters. I'm looking for the reporters to do something they don't know or not aware that it's a part of their job, which is any way you can get support to the American public of information, any way you can get the truth to show up, pick that strategy. The current strategy that you're going called adult to adult is not working. But if I'm going to bring this president to truth, I need to empathize with where he is, talk about what empathetic value it is. Is it about safety? Is it about care? Is it about family? Is it about spirituality or religion? Is it about community? And take the air out of those balloons first. Take the air out of the balloon. So, Mr. President, you are just being hopeful and optimistic because a big part of your constituents are very religious, and you really want to give them some hope that maybe they can worship together back in church. And that's what that's really what part of the motive was by you saying that, yeah, that would be really nice if that could happen. But we're not sure right now. Oh, so you're feeling some doubt about it because, you'd really like this to happen. At the same time, that, people are telling you that it's not going so well out there with the virus. Yeah, that's right. See, you're allowing him to pivot and turn.
Sure, and I agree with you, Bill, and I think this is very illuminating that the words and these language and the technique that can be used. But here's the question that I'm curious about with you is, would that kind of process and skill of a journalist, like you just laid out, be as dramatic on the 24-hour news channels? Would it get as much ratings for them as it would to just be the fact checkers? See, I'm wondering if the fact checking gets more ratings because it's a little more controversial versus the empathy model. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be done because it brings truth out.
Right.
Do you see where I'm going?
So there's this is a tough one, Tom. What you just asked is a tough one. Is actually what it will do is provide calm and peace to the listener. What it also will do is reduce the conflict between media and the president, which then allows the people, the listener, to feel and experience less doubt and skepticism towards the press and deal with the ambiguity of not knowing instead of making the press wrong and the president right, which is the false choice that they have to make.
Or the press trying to say we're right and the president is wrong.
Right. Yeah, it's the straight talk the press needs to do after. Yes, the president was being optimistic, and today he was being more realistic. Today he's being more optimistic. Today he's being more realistic. Instead of he's walking it back. I don't want to hear that phrase ever again in TV. I want to say today he's being optimistic. He's promoting an optimistic message. Oh, today he's promoting a more of a realistic thing. So the media then gets the listener not to hear them as he's walking it back. He was lying and then doing this. He's just promoting. The president is looking to promote. The president is looking to sell. The president is looking to present to the American public this thing because he was choosing to protect the Americans by not getting them scared 3 months ago. So he chose to not bring the news that he would like. Oh, so he's being hopeful. The president was being hopeful that the virus was not going to come to the United States, with his message that we have this handled. See, the president just expects, and like, I don't know what he's thinking about this, but he's expecting the government to work the way his businesses work, which is he says something and then everybody around him picks up the pieces. That's the way his businesses worked. He didn't fix any things he said. He just allowed other people to fix it. He said whatever he wanted to say, and they would fix it.
Sure, because he was the king of the business.
Right. Great in capitalism, terrible as a public servant. And we've got to get used to, we have somebody in a mindset that doesn't know how to speak from the heart fully. He's telling his story in a promotive way with very clear propaganda messages. Some people say this. I've heard people say that that's all propaganda message. You know, one person said that. You know, I heard, and many people are saying that that's propaganda. It's saying, I have somebody that I see as an expert that will make a difference. Instead of saying things, well, I'm not expecting him to say anything. I'm what this episode more is about is how to get reporters to work with the person that's in front of them, not do a so funny. He calls them gotcha questions, but as soon as the reporter comes off, she or he stands there and say, yes, that line of questioning was the best questioning ever. Look at how good that reporter does. Now, the reporter is getting their need for respect met by their colleagues, but they're not doing their job.
Yes, and that is the point, isn't it? Is that,
yeah, it's not their job. It's not fully their job. But
yeah, sure. I mean, if
their job is to fact check, but not in that way, not in the way that they're doing it.
Well, right. They can reveal the truth, which in reality is a form of fact checking. They can reveal the truth in a more skillful way, using these, different language, these words to reduce emotional reaction and reduce triggering the president to go off on a rant, which might be good for some TV ratings, I guess. But is not, especially in this kind of a global health crisis that does not discriminate between what age, what color you are, what age you are, what country you're from.
Doesn't discriminate.
The truth, revealing the truth, has really never been more critically important.
Yeah. So let me give you another example of this, and this one shot to my head and then this is really personal. Then we can get to closure. The when Ronald Reagan was dealing with the AIDS crisis.
Yes.
It was all ignoring it. So much ignoring it. All the people around him were ignoring it. Because it sat in that and it was affecting one specific community, the AIDS community, the gay community.
Gay community, right.
It was affecting that community. And my brother died during that time, because from AIDS. And when he was saying those things, the public health things that needed to take place needed to have both a local response. You got to shut these bathhouses down. That was just something that came off the top of my head, but there was other things. Right?
Oh, but I remember that was one of the earliest, I guess the doctors who discovered what was happening were trying to do that in San Francisco, which was like the hot spot of. That was
one of the hot spot. And then New York City, where my brother lived and was in the artist community, it took a swath of people out of things. The drugs efficacy drugs were slowed. Same thing. It's just that the common person couldn't get it. It wasn't until, or they could get it, but it wasn't until the Rock Hudson had it, when the president's friend got it, that the president goes, huh? How could you get this thing? It's like, well, Rock Hudson was Rock Hudson. Come on now,
Well, and then
you were like that, whatever.
And then also when it became clear that first it would happen with hemophiliacs started to get it because their drugs
blood transfusion
were made from blood, and they would get blood transfusions. And there's the whole idea of tainted blood that anybody could get. I mean, many things happen that sort of,
there's many people that died that
yeah.
were in that space, and there were many public agencies that failed because they were voting for the dollar and not voting for the people, which is pretty much what Trump is saying right now. The blinders on this type of mindset, it needs to be done with compassion and empathy in order to get them to turn to do the right thing. As soon as Reagan had, as soon as Rock Hudson showed up, and all of a sudden it was this whole Rock Hudson thing, it was like all of a sudden everything started moving. The drugs were being made, and the right doctors were being consulted, and the right manufacturers were making the right stuff, and all of a sudden, and Magic Johnson is still around today because of it.
Yeah, he is, absolutely. And
still around today because of that.
Victory for medical science.
If that timeline was moved back and President Reagan would have done it earlier, my brother would still be alive today. See how this kind of like gets close, right?
Right.
Now, this morning, and I'm going to finish on a somber note here. This morning, yesterday morning, Monday morning, is when my staff meets. The five of us meet, yeah. And so when we go down the call, the first thing we do is check in. And I have a new administrative assistant, and she says the last week has been really, really terrible. I go, what's up? She goes, well, actually, my dad died yesterday. So all of a sudden we're going like ruh-roh, and there's 5 of us on the call, right?
Yeah.
So I go, okay, so tell us a little bit about what happened. Her dad, first cough was either Monday or Tuesday, in the hospital by late Wednesday, Thursday, and took his last breath on Sunday.
And he died from the
virus.
Wow.
From the COVID virus. Okay. So we never know when it's going to get close to home. We never know how close. The question is that now what? Like, where did he get it? How did he get it? And oh, by the way, you're my staff member. Did you get it? Right.
Right.
So all of a sudden it's like, and we've been away from each other for already 2 weeks now, 2.5 weeks. We've been away from each other, my entire staff. We've done a lot of virtual stuff anyways, but she was a person that, came to my house.
Oh, wow.
Now, if she would have came to my house on Friday after taking care of her dad, that would then be in my house. You see what I mean?
Sure.
Because she was, had connection with her dad. The sad part about it is that we're sitting there and going like, here's somebody we care about, somebody we work with. They've lost their father. It brings up everybody else's issues about fathers, the rest of my staff who have, challenges with the loss of their fathers and the absentee of their fathers. And all of a sudden I got this father thing in the middle of it, in the middle of my meeting. How long do we need to prolong this experience without getting on it? What needs to happen for the president to have that experience and does it really mean, and is it that important, and it is, by the way, for certain news agencies to start running some raw footage of what it's like inside the hospital? Stick cameras around, meet the need for privacy for the patients and the doctors, but also watch what it looks like when the halls stack up. Because, I don't know, what was it, maybe 3 months ago, I took a friend of mine to the hospital, and I know what it's like when you come in at an unopportune time and they got beds lining the hallways waiting to get into the next available room. This is going to be 10 or 20 times worse than that, so the people aren't going to even make it to the room, so to get to the ventilator, they're not going to have that level of support. Is there enough outlets in the aisles of the hallways of the hospitals to handle it? These kinds of questions go in my head. It's like, because they ain't getting in a room, because the room's already got somebody in there who are waiting for the next person isn't checking out. They're checking out in a, through dying. So how do you feel when you hear me tell that story?
Well, definitely is very sobering and
right.
Very serious and sad, concerning. But
yes.
Not all of us have know somebody who's actually gotten sick and died from this.
Yep.
And so I think that does change your perspective. It must.
It does.
And is it going to take a member of the president's family to get it and get seriously ill and maybe die in order for him to change his perspective?
Yeah. What is going to, and we talked about this a little bit time. It's like a flat earth mindset. Unless I see the earth is round, I'm not going to believe it's round. Right.
Right.
So this is it's similar to that. The reporters have got to do a better job of recognizing he has limiting beliefs, that when he hears that the hospital used to order this many face masks and now is ordering 30,000 face masks. They went from 3,000 to 30,000. And he's shaking his head and he goes, I don't understand. You've got to ask a question that supports the president's understanding, not say, why are you so quote unquote stupid that you're not listening to your advisors, or you're not asking good questions. He's never had to ask good questions. He's never had to reflect. He's never had to slow down to face facts or face losses. He's always been able to spend his way out of losses. Every legal thing that he's went into, he's just bought everybody off because he's had the money to throw at it. So what? I just pay the attorney to stall it till the other side runs out of money. So what? He's not caring about the consequence, the human consequence on the other side. That you just killed somebody else's business by filing bankruptcy, by not paying your invoice, by not being in integrity with the agreement you started with. He's not that guy. He just isn't. And the big thing about it is for the news reporters to really become emotionally sober when he says something that is optimistic. It's not truthful, but his best winning formula is to be optimistic. And then he walks it back and puts a little realistic in it, but not enough to overcome the optimism that he started with. He's trying to drive the Titanic after it's hit the iceberg. you know,
Sure.
and he's doing the best he can as this part of the nation takes on water. Now, you know, how well we get back to shore, how well we have lifeboats for everybody that gets infected. That's what the respirators are for. That's what the masks are for. Is you have got to have enough life rafts. But right now we don't. And there's, you know, and now it's two away from you, Tom. Me, my assistant, her father. It's two away, Tom. Now the question
Sure.
is when. You know somebody or a family that had to go through the AIDS thing, right? You know somebody
Oh,
that got
absolutely.
lost,
No, I have a
right?
family member also who died of AIDS. No
Right. So all
question.
of a sudden it's real. It's real. It's real. The earth is round. It's real because you see it now in this new place. It's like, who's grandma, who's, you know, young person with a disease or whatever, who's, you know, and yeah, it doesn't, you know, impact certain age groups, but that's not what you're supposed to look at. You're not supposed to look. You're supposed to look at safety, protection. What does stability look like? How do we get clarity and information? How do you protect the community? Those are the key words. How do we get predictability with masks and the materials that they need? How to get reassurance, how to get certainty, how to get trust. Those are the key words that the public needs to be talking from, and the news media needs to be talking from.
Well,
What do you think, Tom? Do you think we
I
landed pretty good?
yeah, I think that was a very good discussion and very, very illuminating. And
Yeah.
you
So
know,
the next time I think what we might need to do is to actually formulate media sentences and maybe get like a half dozen or dozen responses. And the idea of, because one reporter is only getting one question and one follow-up, I think the reporters could do a really better job of, you know, they've got their list of questions, because if another reporter asks that question, you might not want to come back to that question again. You have to have the second one. I think what happens is they need to line themselves up
they need to
so it
play a
supports the
team.
process
Yeah, they need
a
to play
little.
a team
Mhm.
sport.
It's a little more team sport, and it would be supportive to the president too, because then what happens is he gets to say yes, well, like he wants to. He gets acknowledgement and recognition, and they get the opportunity to bring truth out in a new way, because
Wouldn't
that's what they're not fully doing.
wouldn't that be
So
amazing? I look forward to that discussion. To have, you know, now the president really wouldn't know what hit him because it's not any one journalist asking a series of questions that he sort
that's
of
right.
walks out on the plank with. It'd be a
That's right.
coordinated effort of a bunch of them, and they could each day to day take turns who
Yeah.
asks the pivoting question, right? And
Yeah.
the others
Yeah.
help put him in that condition
Position.
where he's
That's right.
feeling really good.
It's very helpful for all of us that are listening, and so we're not fighting the virus on three fronts. See, we're fighting the virus on three fronts. There's the health part, there's the financial part, and there's the accuracy and truth of the conflict part that doesn't need to be there. Is this a financial question, or is this a virus question or a health question? Those two need to be stay close to these two. But what happens is we're getting drug over here to the conflict regarding truth and accuracy into this third column that we don't belong in.
It's
And
just
that's
not
what's really,
helpful.
no, it's not helpful. We're not trying to fight out the what do you call it, the fourth state or whatever, the fourth thing, the press, which is not,
Yeah.
you know, it's not the Senate, and it's not the Congress, and it's not the executive team, it's not the legal piece, you know, it's the press, which pursues facts and information, you know, and kind of discovers things that are not legal or at the line of not being legal,
Mm.
you know. So
Does. Okay, Bill. Well, I look forward to that discussion.
All right, Tom. More to come. It's great visiting with you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.